We've heard the debate about life on another planet for decades now. In fact, soon enough, we moved on to shifting mankind to another planet like Mars entirely. But obviously, there are some huge factors we need to consider first, so how close have we really come to that goal? It turns out scientists are planning on growing an entire forest inside a bubble on Mars. Keep watching to find out everything you need to know. First off, moving to another planet is becoming a necessity. Let's just say that the human quest to become an interplanetary species isn't just because we're all huge fans of Star Wars. In fact, over the past century or so, we've definitely put Earth under an increasing amount of pressure that we, frankly, need to rethink. There's only so much space and resources we could use. On top of that, let's not forget how we're absolutely taking advantage of whatever we have left instead of trying to salvage whatever we can. And now, even if we do end up making a few ecological moves to save Earth from turning into a giant landfill, there are no signs of population growth stopping anytime soon. In fact, many people believe that shifting to other planets, and therefore alleviating the growing strain on even Earth's most bountiful resources, might be the only way we have left to preserve our species now. Having said that, humans might have been able to live peacefully on Earth because of the resources we've got today, and that's exactly why colonizing other planets is gonna be pretty challenging, to say the least. Let's not forget we still need to figure out a way even to transport large groups of people to new worlds. How are we going to make all of that happen? Well, it turns out that University of Bristol civil engineer Paul Smith put together a pretty great plan. He wants to build an earthly forest in a bubble on the surface of Mars. And it's gonna be natural, not artificial. Following up, creating an atmosphere-controlled bubble. In a paper published in the International Journal of Astrobiology, Smith wrote that if we can't control the human population growth, we're gonna have to sacrifice natural areas. And an alternative to that is to simply create more habitat, which is clearly a hint at shifting to another planet like Mars, and honestly, he's not wrong. Yes, we know Mars is definitely a very different planet from the one we're living in. For starters, it's colder and drier and even has a completely different atmosphere, and that's not even all of it. Scientists believe that it also contains huge reservoirs of ice right beneath its surface. And let's suppose humans are able to access and utilize these reservoirs. Do you think they'd be able to overcome the other challenges? Well, maybe an atmosphere-controlled container can, or in this case, a bubble. On top of that, Martian regolith is also pretty rich in some elements that we need for earthly agriculture, particularly phosphorus. But let's not forget it also falls short of a number of essential macronutrients along with soil-enriching microbiota and other important organisms like earthworms. So clearly this in itself is also going to be a challenge. Not to mention, it's the first step to a much-awaited transition. Let's not forget that Smith isn't really suggesting that humans need to terraform the entire Martian surface. Instead, the bubbles, which he thinks of as facsimile models of old-growth, early earthly forests, are going to serve as oases. So that's gonna offer emotional and practical benefits for planet-hopping Earthlings one day. And if you really think about it, the idea sounds really familiar. Well, it might just be a bit similar to Elon Musk's original interplanetary pet project right before SpaceX, to send a simple rocket to Mars that's gonna deploy a small greenhouse. Having said that, Smith says the forest bubble is simply gonna serve as an extraterrestrial nature reserve, or ETNR for short, a psychological refuge, and obviously a utilitarian botanic garden. Along with that, it's also going to support species of value to colonists for secondary metabolites. Think about flavors, vitamins, medicines, perfumes, colors, and mood enhancers, all of it. On top of that, Mars's ultra-high radiation levels are also probably the biggest wrench in the scientists' plan, because think about it. How are our rusty red neighbors' differing magnetic fields going to impact any growing vegetation? But then again, let's not forget that when you're in interplanetary territory, questions like these are going to come rolling in. And if humans end up making it back to the moon and to Mars, or even beyond that, there are a bunch more questions that are likely to come. Coming up, this might be a turning point for the coming generations. It's not really about how workable his proposed idea is, because if we're being honest, science has achieved a lot more than what we thought was possible. Instead, the message in Smith's paper does come off as a hopeful one, where we're exploring and even inhabiting new worlds. Can you imagine what that would be like? Then again, it's not just about creating a new world out there, but it's more about how we're going to pull off the entire transition, including transportation for huge groups of the growing human population, and are we planning to shift to Mars completely, or just take a few with us and divide our population into 2 planets? These are questions that'll have answers in the next few decades, sooner than you think. Having said that, Smith says that from a biocentric perspective, world leaders need to be more concerned about the future of life in the universe, along with humanity's role in its protection. Adding to that, he said, on a planet of limited habitability, this is a significant duty. The survival of life in any form is the ultimate biocentric priority. Up next, life on Mars may have been its own worst enemy. It turns out it might not all be too great. In fact, a new study suggests that about billions of years ago, microbes may have thrived on Mars right before they succumbed to freezing temperatures of their own making. Even though we already know that early Mars was wetter, warmer, and a lot more habitable than the freezing dry desert it has become today, researchers have a lot more to find out, and one of the things they're after is finding direct proof that life, of any kind, ever lived on the Martian surface. Think about it. If Mars ever did host life, even if it was years ago, there's one key question that demands answers. How did such life impact the planet, and where can we find any sort of evidence for its existence in the past? Well, it turns out a new study considered all of these mysteries that we're talking about, and a plausible Martian biosphere might have been responsible for turning the planet into its inhospitable state. In fact, the findings also suggest that some regions of the planet, including Jezero Crater, where NASA's Perseverance rover goes around, might be the planet's best locales to search for any signs of life. In fact, it also hints that the life that once existed might have been its own worst enemy on worlds throughout the cosmos. What's more, this could answer questions that we need today to turn Mars habitable. If you think about it, answers to questions like these are all we need to figure out the answers to questions that come up whenever we talk about shifting to Mars. And soon enough, it might become a reality right before we turn Earth into another inhabitable planet. Now, using climate and terrain models to recreate Mars as it would have been about 4 billion years ago, French researchers also concluded that microbes might have once thrived just centimeters below the red planet's surface. Not only that, but they also protected against harsh cosmic radiation by overlaying soil. Having said that, the buried biosphere would also probably have retreated deeper into the planet, perhaps to its drop, driven by freezing temperatures that it created itself. In fact, the study published in Nature Astronomy even proposes that these hypothetical ancient microbes actually gobbled hydrogen and carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere, and this ended up producing methane. On top of that, let's not forget that all these 3 substances can pretty much act as heat-trapping greenhouse gases, and this means that any changes in each one's abundance can literally have huge effects on a planet's surface temperature. In fact, talking about this one specific case, the net reduction in atmospheric greenhouse gases from this putative methanogen biosphere would have triggered global cooling that pretty much covered most of Mars's surface with ice, and that helps create the planet's inhabitable and barren state that we see today. All in all, Boris Soudary, a postdoctoral fellow at Sorbonne University in Paris and also the lead author of the paper, suggests that basically whatever life was on that planet may have been self-destructive. In fact, it's that very self-destructive tendency that might be limiting the ability of life to emerge widely in the universe as we hoped. Finally, there's a lot to consider before moving to Mars. We keep asking if humans can live on Mars, but along with the limits of our ingenuity, our science and technology have also advanced. We've gone from being able to tolerate a narrow band of conditions to literally expanding our existence to almost every part of the planet we live on, and it's time to start thinking about going beyond it. Like even the most hostile environment we've ever faced, the vacuum of space, has had a continuous human population for over 20 years now. But it's not just about going to Mars, it's about surviving and, if possible, thriving there, and the living conditions and transportation transportation we need to make that a reality are gonna require way more than what we have right now to work out the complexity of the situation. All in all, Mars is a particularly difficult planet to land on, let alone live on, but compared to all of the other planets that scientists continue to explore, Mars has come up as the closest to habitable that humans can focus on. So how long until we have a human population on Mars? Guess we'll have to wait to find out. That's gonna be a wrap for this video, my friends. What's your take on the forest inside a bubble on Mars? Let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.